Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Elombah television tonight. A few hours ago, we got information that an Abuja High Court has issued a judgment that in effect dissolved the People's Democratic Party, PDP, state executive in Anambra State. Upon our inquiries, we discovered that there was, well, some of us may be aware that there is a pending suit instituted by Barrister Sam Anyakora, the PDP chairman for Ihiala, who went to court on behalf of other local governments PDP chairmen that were elected with him, but were reportedly sidetracked by the present PDP caretaker executive committee. Now, that particular matter before the Abuja High Court a decision was given today. And the consequences of that decision is that party executive of the PDP, led by Honorable Ndubisi Nwobu, was effectively sacked with immediate effect. Barrister Obinike Ohebu is a PDP stalwart in Anambra State. Can you please give us a background of today's court proceeding?
Well, I think what happened today is judgment, and the issue concerning this case, I'm sure you are aware, it has been discussed on Elombah television. As a matter of fact, at some point, Elombah.com was actually digging deep to find out what was going on, as at that time there were several court cases. This judgment that was delivered today, if you could recall, is in respect to Anyakora, Sama Anyakora, Barrister Sama Anyakora, the PDP chairman in Ihiala. Their own position is that in 2017, November 2017, when there was Congress for PDP in Anambra State, that the ward and local government congresses were conducted, and after passing through the processes of panels and all that, they were confirmed elected. But the state ESCO was called off. You know, that PDP Congress was held, I think, less than a week before the National Convention. And their own position is that the state Congress was not held. The state executive election for the state ESCO was not held because it was called off by the then acting chairman, Mr. Nwaba. And I'm sure, I think at that point, within that period, Nwaba was equally on Elombah television and all that. When that case, I think 2 years ago, when this matter was disputed in the court, I stated a position then, which Ndubisi took personal, Honorable Ndubisi took personal. I felt I was attacking him, and I was not. What I was saying then is that there was a need for all the parties to come to a round table and discuss, because I was anticipating that there could be something like this in the build up to the 2021 election. And as at that time, I was an interested party because I was running for governorship. If you could recall, I had to write to the national chairman and all that, seeking for confirmation of the ESCO. Anyway, that is not the issue. What happened today is that High Court case, initially the High Court judge held that he had no jurisdiction because the case was an internal affair of PDP. As a matter of fact, in one of the days we went to court, the judge adjourned the case by 2 or 3 months so that the parties could go and reconcile. And in fact, directed the National Secretariat of the PDP to ensure that peace is restored in Anambra State and all the parties are on the same page. That didn't happen. The court continued, and the High Court judge held that he had no jurisdiction over the matter. And the parties went on appeal. They went to Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal returned the case back to the High Court, stating that a party is bound by his own constitution, that the PDP is bound to follow the constitution it has made for himself, or for herself, or for themselves, whatever terminology that is appropriate. So that matter went back to the High Court. But if you recall, the position of the Samanya Kora is that not just that they were elected and the appeal panels confirmed them as the elected various local government chairmen, various local government ESCOs of PDP and ward ESCOs of PDP. That when the new government, secondary government, took over, that the then zonal vice chairman, Austin Umahi, was asked to go, and he chaired a committee that looked into it and confirmed that there was no status quo. According to I'm talking about the case of the Samanya Kora. There was no status quo, but they had to local government and what is. And Austin Umahi was asked to act to run the affairs of the PDP in Anambra State. And pursuant to that directive from the party, he inaugurated the ward and state local government ESCOs in Enugu. This was in the build-up to the 2019 election. And the caretaker was set up. And that caretaker, if you look at it, who said that probably all the party stakeholders made inputs, and Ndubisi was the chairman of that caretaker. Eventually, a lot of water passed under the bridge and all that. Ndubisi became the substantive chairman and the secretary. So, but he was then not working with the people who said they were sworn in as the local government, the Samanya Kora team, who were sworn in, who were elected, cleared, and sworn in as the various leaders of the parties in the wards and local government. So that was what led to them, led to the court case. They went to the High Court to challenge the matter, and as I said earlier, the High Court eventually declined decision. Was an internal affair of the party and the court. I hope I'm still with you.
Yes, we are listening. Yes, we are listening. Go ahead.
Ayokara being dissatisfied with the decision of the High Court as at then, went to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal referred the matter back to the same High Court, telling the High Court that he had powers to hear the matter. And what you had today is the outcome of those proceedings. And incidentally, of course, and unfortunately, is too close to the PDP primaries, and every PDP member will be concerned. But the good thing about that is that, as I spoke to a couple of my friends, the court has consistently held, the Supreme Court has consistently held, and incidentally, most of those major decisions were cases coming up that came from Anambra to the Supreme Court. That is the national executive of the party, the national ESCO of the party, have the powers to submit names to INEC. They have the powers to conduct the primaries. So I'm not sure this decision, I think this decision will not have any effect in the primaries, if you ask me, because the secondaries-led national ESCO will still appoint the committee members that will go to Anambra and conduct the primaries. But the only concern is that if we continue on this route, we'll have a challenge because PDP will then not go into the election as a family. If you could recall, my greatest concern, I'm sure you still have that on your website, on your television platform, my views as at that time, and it has not changed. that the only way PDP will win this election is that all the parties will come to a round table and work together, irrespective of who the candidate is. No matter who gets the ticket. As a matter of fact, even if you have a constitutional waiver for His Excellency Peter Obi because of his performance, for him to go and recontest for the governorship and under the platform of PDP, and PDP is not, the major stakeholders of PDP are not together on it, it will be difficult for them to win it is difficult for us to win the November 6th election. But we still have time. It's hopeful. I'm hopeful that the parties who see cause and see reasons why they can work together. I was supposed to run for the election, and for some reasons I'm not running. But I decided to stay back.
Barrister Hebu, let's let our listeners get some facts and issues straight concerning what happened today and its impact on the People's Democratic Party in Anambra State. First, you have just informed us that this Nwobu and his team were only appointed as caretaker committee executive. At what point did they transmute to become the substantive PDP executive in Anambra State?
In the build-up to 2019, caretaker was set up and he chaired it. In fact, I was supposed to be an aspirant in the election then, and we had correspondence. He was the chairman of the caretaker. I think one of the members of the caretaker was on this platform too, OCN Okafor, who confirmed that he was a member of the caretaker. I think after the 2019 elections, I don't know, I can't say categorically what happened, but you've had Nwobu on this platform on the same issue. He became the chairman of the executive chairman, if you permit me to use the word executive. And the caretaker was dissolved and he became a substantive chairman. I understand there was a decision, a court decision, a court ruling in favor of him becoming the substantive chairman. And that was the position before this matter was challenged in court because of the non-recognition of the people who were supposedly sworn in as the members of the ESCO in the wards and the local government.
All right, so is it correct to say that my information is that ward congresses were held, local government congresses were held, and then because the state congresses were not held, that was the reason behind the formation of that caretaker committee.
That was the case of the barrister Sam Anyakora, which has now been confirmed by the court, by the decision of the court today.
Right. So that means that barrister Honorable Nwobu and his team.
If we could recall, specifically the acting chairman of the state PDP as at that time, in the build up to 2007, let me give you the background. In the build up to the 2017 election, PDP appointed a caretaker committee led by Professor ABC Nwosu. Professor ABC Nwosu led committee succeeded for the first time in several years in getting the party to conduct one single primaries. Before then, you knew what the case was. So after the election, Professor ABC Nwosu resigned from the caretaker committee because, of course, his commission, he was not there to grab power. He wanted the PDP to be united to go for the election, and what happened, and he felt he was not there to was not interested in becoming the PDP chairman. He only wanted, he was pleaded to come and help, and he rendered his help. And as a gentleman he is, he moved on. So when he resigned, because he's from Nnewi, Anambra South, the person, another person from Anambra South, took over from him in acting capacity with the responsibility to conduct the election, the Congress that was supposed to take place in November. Then the one for the Congress for the wards, according to the Sama Anyakora case, was conducted. This was equally affirmed, I can tell you that categorically as a member of the PDP, by the Osinumahe Committee. Then the party permitted Osinumahe Committee to inaugurate the Congress for the people that were elected at the ward and local government level. That was done in Enugu, the zonal office, because as at that time, the former vice chairman South was overseeing the activities of the PDP in Anambra State. He inaugurated that ward and local government school in Enugu. Then, in the build up to the election, there was 2019 election. There was need to have, you could say, homegrown leadership of the party, because there is no way the party could be run in the build up to the election from Abakaliki. So a caretaker committee was set up with people like Honorable Ngozi Agudosi, Honorable Osien Okeke, Okafor rather, Chief Ugochukwu Okeke, and several other notable, responsible, reputable party leaders in the state accepted. In fact, the secretary of that panel, that committee, was Chief Ugochukwu Okeke. They accepted to go and serve on that platform. They were there when the primaries for the 2019 election was done. After that, as I said, I'm not too sure of what happened, but I understand NDBC had a court judgment recognizing him as the chairman, and State ESCO was formed. There was no quarrels. But the argument of the Samanya Kora is that when that executive took over, they failed or refused or neglected to recognize those of them that were supposedly inaugurated as substantive ward and local government leaders in Enugu. It was on that basis that they went to court. And they're going to court. The judgment was what you had today. It's not something that started today. It has been lingering. Unfortunately, the judgment came today and quite too close to the election, because we are supposed to be in the village tomorrow for the 3-man delegates. We can't do that anymore because I don't know. I'm still in Abuja, as you can see.
All right. Mazam, thank you very much. We have Agudosi Ngozi joining us. Thank you very much for joining. We have also other PDP members in the forum. We will be happy to hear your comments if you indicate by raising up your hand if you intend to. Okay, so Mazam, my next question will now be, the court has now given a decision, in effect, sacking the NDBC Mobile-led PDP State Executive Committee. How will this impact, one, on the PDP primaries coming forth on June 28th, I guess, and two, the fortunes of the PDP in Anambra State in the forthcoming November election? So let's treat the first one, because I'm aware that about 14 aspirants have already purchased forms to contest in the PDP primary this month. And now they were doing these under the leadership of the state executive led by NDBC Nwobu. Now that Honorable Nwobu is no longer the state PDP chairman, How will that affect?
16 aspirants, PDPs.
Okay, 15 aspirants. So how will that affect the primary coming up, please?
1-6.
Sorry?
1-6.
Oh, 1-6, 16 governorship aspirants in the PDP. Thank you for that correction. So how will that affect the forthcoming primaries?
As I said earlier, on paper, it will have absolutely no effect, because the court had just confirmed that it is not Mr. A that will participate in the primaries, in Mr. B. It has no effect on who is going to conduct the primaries, as I said earlier.
So who is going to conduct the primaries for the benefit of our listeners? Who is going to conduct the primaries?
By virtue of the provisions of the Constitution of PDP, which the Supreme Court has consistently confirmed, it's the national executive of the PDP that will conduct the primaries, not the state ESCO. As a matter of fact, I was the secretary of the panel that conducted the Imo State governorship election in 2019. I was appointed by the national, the PDP, the National Working Committee, the National ESCO of the PDP. I went to the Wadata House. It was at Wadata House that I was given the appointment letter. It was at the Wadata House that I was given the guidelines and all the materials I needed. All the only thing the PDP ESCOs in Enugu, in Imo did was to welcome us and provided us with the assistance we needed. Probably we wanted to talk to the stakeholders. They helped us to, invite the stakeholders. Just gave us some logistic assistance, but the primaries was conducted by us, and that will see what is going to happen. That is what it is on paper. Of course, would that have any effect? It will have effect with or without this judgment. If PDP fails to go to the November.
Right, let's I think, thank you very much. Let's separate the two. I know I asked two questions. You have answered the first one. Let me see whether Chief Agodes Ngozi have a different opinion. Thank you. Sorry, I saw you raised your hand, but please, I'll come back to you. Let me hear from Chief Agodes on this point. Please unmute yourself. Whether you agree with what Basil Ohebu have said on this issue.
Thank you, Elombah Television. I hope you can hear me, sir.
Very well, very clear.
Okay, let me thank Mazi Ohebu for his contribution, but I want to call his attention to Section 25 of PDP Constitution, the current PDP Constitution, 2017 as amended, signed by the current National Chairman and National Secretary. The Section 25(1) says there shall be a state party congress which shall constitute of the state chairman who shall be the chairman of that congress. So there is no way you can go and have a state congress without a state chairman. The state chairman is the person that convenes the congress. So if you don't have a state chairman, there is no way you can have a congress that will elect the party candidate. Not at all. And we have been on national assignments. Because you come from Abuja, you intimidate a chairman who does not know his job. If it is a state chairman that knows his job, you come from Abuja, you cannot do anything without him. If he says he did not convene the Congress, there is no way, nothing you can do, nothing, absolutely nothing. So the state executive and the state chairman is very important to the primaries of this election. PDP neglected a whole of issues that has to do with Anambra State, as usual. And now, look at where we've landed ourselves. Unfortunately, I have called the attention of all the aspirants today, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, telling them that this matter will one day hurt everybody. And today, look at it. You can say you will go to court and get a stay of execution. You can say you can go to appeal on this matter. The question is, what time do you have? What time do you have? We don't have time. So my own is, let us go back and then start talking to each other and see how we can come out of this. Because it is not fair. I feel so terrible. I feel so bad about all these things. But be that as it may, there is a chairman. And I think one of the things the court have said is that they should go ahead and, I haven't seen the judgment, but I know the court also took cognizance of the fact that we have no time. So I know that the court will say something about that. Until we see it, we have a chairman from this court judgment, and then we go ahead. My own is, let everybody come together and work together. PDP has never had a chance or an opportunity that we have today, based on what is going on in Apuga, based on the total unacceptance of APC in Anambra State or in the Southeast in general. PDP has a chance to put a governor, and we are ready to do that. But we have to work collectively, and we have to solve our problems. We cannot leave our problems for outsiders to solve it for us. We are all Anambra people, and we can sit down and solve our problem. That's my take on it. That's my take on it. Yeah.
I thank you very much for the submission, Mazi Agodesi. So then it appears that there's a crisis in PDP now. Mazi, do you agree with this assertion? Right now, there is a crisis in PDP in Anambra State. Please unmute yourself.
Barrister Elombah, if you have followed me in the past 3 years, which substantial part of my contributions on issues relating to the party were done on Elombah television. I've continued to say it consistently that unless PDP works together, the stakeholders in PDP work, if they work together, PDP is guaranteed of winning that election. And when you are talking about stakeholders in PDP, you are talking about people who are very strong. For instance, for somebody like Evangelist Lado Sokachu, Chris Ocha, Chris Uba, His Excellency Peter Obi. At least these 3 people and the former national publicity secretary of the party, 4 of them. These are people who have capacity at any time. Give them 24 hours. They will give you a list of 20-man ward executive in the 326 wards in Anambra State, in the party, who are members of the party. These are not ghost lists. These are not ghost lists. If you tell them to give you 20 members within 24 hours, they will give you names of PDP stakeholders or party ESCOs in the 326 wards. So these are not the people you will toy with. They have to come together for the party to make progress. I'm not challenging what my good friend Chief Ngozi Agudos. You may not know him. He has been he's a PDP stalwart. As a matter of fact, he contested for the chairmanship in 2017. So probably if you had this fact, you would have asked him a question concerning the election. The fact remains that these guys, everybody must come together. Whether you have state congress or you don't have state congress. If Secondus writes a letter signed by the national secretary that after the processes and blah, blah, blah of the party in Anambra State, that we are submitting XYZ as the candidates of the party. This guy, nobody from the state will write and say that we have no candidate. as I said, the Supreme Court has been consistent on that. It's the national body that submits them to the INEC. But if your name is submitted and you go there to come fourth or fifth, in 2017 we came third. If you don't go there and come forth, what does it translate to? That submission amounts to nothing.
The person will only come forth instead of first, maybe because now that we have 16 contestants and they felt aggrieved, and one person, if 15 feels aggrieved and vote against that one person, what chance does the person have?
That's what I'm saying. So, in fact, any of these stakeholders, you see, for PDP to win this election, there is a kind of bandwagon effect, the support from everybody we have. It will be a movement. Because we don't have, as a party, we are not in charge at the local government. We are not in charge at the state. We are not in charge at the national. We have no control of the instruments supposedly important for election, except the masses. It's only the people that we have in Anambra State. So we need to let the people have to have confidence that we are working together.
Okay, let me invite question to ask to pose some questions to you, and maybe also, not maybe, I'm sure that Chief Agudesi will have something to say on questions. Then let both of you give us answers to some of those things bothering the minds of the Anambra who are here. Mr. Tango Gochukwu, let's take your question first, and then let's see how the PDP stalwarts and Amist will answer to them.
Good day, I will say good day because people are watching all over the world. I will say good morning or good afternoon, maybe long stop. Elombah, question I have to ask Obunike, as a strong PDP member in Anambra, are they doing this for interest of Anambra people? Because history wants to repeat itself. Anambra was born down years ago. This is how it started. Now, June, already I know PDP have their delegates already, and this is progress. But now, court judgment in June, party candidate election in June, everything in June. We PDP survive this June. Obunike?
Okay, we thank you. Let's okay, you want Obunike to go first. All right, myself, all right, go first.
I was correct at the impression. This judgment was not given by PDP. The parties have been in court for 2 years, minimum of 2 years.
Why everything in June?
The challenge with the timing of the judgment is the problem of the judiciary. Probably because I don't know. I'm not in the judiciary. The timing of the judgment, you should channel that question or challenge to the judiciary, not PDP.
Okay, let me point something out. I made some inquiries this afternoon on why this judgment was given today. The answer I had was that this judgment may have come earlier than now, but because of the Josom strike, the court cannot give decision. But then there was a directive from the Supreme Court that all urgent matters, especially if they are political in nature, should be handled. And so this judgment was given through Zoom. So they quickly called the parties and then gave the decision through a Zoom meeting. That was the information I have. So you can continue.
Even with the information you have, you can see there's a judiciary problem, not the party problem.
Yes.
PDP has no control.
Yes.
And PDP has no control. And there was an insinuation he made. I'm sorry to go back to that, but this is the third time I'm mentioning this issue on this platform. People accuse PDP of burning down this, burning down that. The fact is that the person who was in charge of Anambra State as the state governor when that thing happened is currently in APC. If there is any blame, it should be shifted to APC. As at that time, he was in charge. he took control as the governor. He had a brother who was a senior advocate. So he had no problems getting legal advice. The state never prosecuted anybody for any of the alleged offenses. So if there is any, the ball stopped at the governor's desk because nobody was prosecuted, nobody was charged to court. So going on air to say this person did this person did that, when you as the governor didn't do anything to correct that, as far as I'm concerned, is blackmail, and people should not hold that against PDP.
Right.
They're going to hold it against anybody. It should be against APC.
All right, let's call Chief Agodesi. Maybe he has a response to make on this matter. Chief Agodesi, please.
Well, what I have to say is that first on the issue of if PDP wants to go for this election, yes, we want to go for the election. We're interested in going to the government house. We're interested in being producing the next governor of Anambra State. And there is nothing anybody about that is not in doubt. Then the issue now becomes, how do we get to the government house? Like Chief Ohebu has said, we do not have control over the judicial system, and it is their prerogative to do their thing at their own time. So they have done it. The best thing we do is for us to go back to the drawing board, like I said, and then do what we are supposed to do. We are not strangers. We have tables. We will sit on the table and then discuss these issues. It's not a rocket science. It's a very simple matter. Only that people should accord respect to people that deserve it. Like I said, go back to the issue that led us to where we are today. The congresses that produced the Nwobule executive was mad with crisis. There was no state congress, no matter how you look at it. Court does not produce state executive. I was in that race. And there was no state executive, the state congress. And the National Working Committee is part of the problem. So you can't be blowing hot and cold at the same time. So what the National Working Committee is doing, you can't even blame them much, is that they are obeying a court judgment that says there is a state executive. But now the court have said that that thing that cannot hold water. It is the same FCT High Court that gave life to Ndubisi Wobo-led executive. The same FCT High Court today that said that there's no executive. So there is nothing we can do about it. Let's go back and do the state congress. If I'm contesting for governorship, I will request for a state congress before the primaries. It can happen. So that we don't have an issue of what happened in Zamfara or in River State APC to happen in Anambra PDP.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should do the right thing. So
all right. Okay, thank you very much. So Ikemi Wodike, please. You've been raising up your hand for a while.
Yes, I am not vast with happenings in the PDP in Anambra State. I'm only seeking for knowledge. 1, 2 questions. What has happened to the Umaba-led state executive? Because he was an interested party, and at some point, he was seen as one of the chairmen, or his faction was being presented as one of the factions in the PDP. That's one. Secondly, we have always known that Anambra State have always had timbers and calibers, which Chief Ngozi have just acknowledged. And over the years, they have continued to lose election in Anambra State because they have failed to work together. My question now is, what has changed from the previous times in which they will end up not agreeing, go to the election divided, and then lose the election? What has changed from the previous elections till now? Just these 2 questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with Chief Ohebu then.
The question you asked, huh?
Yeah, there are two questions he asked. What happened to the Umaba-led executive?
Okay, probably he didn't follow what I said. I said the case of the Sam Anyakora, Barrister Sam Anyakora, was that their elections were conducted for the wards and the local government. The one for the state could not hold for some reason, could not hold. And as at that time, as at the time or as at the day, the election did not hold, that Umaba was the acting chairman. So he can now say that their case is that Umaba is still the acting chairman because he has not conducted the Congress. It's his responsibility as the acting chairman to assist in conducting the Congress. So going by this judgment now, you could say that Umaba is the acting chairman of PDP in Anambra State. I have not seen the judgment, but that was the case the last time I checked. And I think Honorable Umaba has equally appeared on Elombah television.
Yes. And did you remember what Umaba said when I interviewed him? Because I've forgotten. That's just the fact.
He just stated the case of the Barrister Sam Anyakora's side, because it's the same case that he said he called off the election.
So who is Ogwebego for the benefit of our listeners? Who is Ogwebego? Is that not, what is his name? Sorry. Ogwebego, isn't it? Yeah.
Maba, I'm not aware of any. Maybe Ngozi could put. I'm not sure Ogwebego is on this matter, because Ogwebego was not a member of the Professor ABC most led caretaker committee that conducted the election that led PDP to the 2017 election before Professor ABC Mosu resigned. When he resigned, Umaba, coming from Anambra South, took over from him. Umaba was meant to conduct the state congress.
Yes.
And he said he called it off, and the election never held. But Honorable Ngozi Agudosi, who was an aspirant or a candidate in that election, I just confirmed that the election didn't take place. So what it means is that Umaba is still the acting chairman, if you follow that line of thought.
But I think you reminded us in this program that the lifespan of an acting chairman should not be more than how many years?
90
Well,
days.
you ask yourself, which days are involved in the counting of 90 days? Because if he was meant to conduct an election and you took it away from him, and he has been protesting since that time, give me my acting whatever so that I can conduct the election, and you've not done, and you heard it. Will you say that he has acted for not more than 90 days? I don't think that is fair.
Okay, Chief Agudosi, please. Who is people? There were comments going on the social media.
What I think he's meant to do is to conduct the state congress.
Okay. Chief Agudosi, who is Ogwebego? Because people are speculating on the social media that he has not been returned as the chairman.
No. Ogwebego used to be one of the factional chairmen. Do you understand? It was Ogwebego and Chief Ken Emakai.
Okay.
The National Working Committee will recognize this one today and the other person.
Okay.
So that is just that. And then Umaba have not completed his 90 days tenure as acting chairman.
How do we count?
No. Just
90 days.
While we are having our governorship election alone, and Ondo is having their own alone, is because so you have to allow somebody to finish his tenure if the person does not complete it, the court will now order that the person goes back and complete it. And that's exactly what happened, because the court said that the acting chairman should go and complete the process of the congresses.
All right. I have requested for this judgment today. Nobody has obtained this. Maybe when we get the details of the judgment, maybe it will shed light on this matter, isn't it?
I can tell you that on the face of law,
yeah,
say that Chief Ubaba is the acting chairman of PDP in Anambra State. There is no two ways about it.
All right, let's listen to has he left? Mazi Kechukwanya, you are raising up your hand.
Hello.
Yeah, Mazi Kechukwanya. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Good evening. It is quite unfortunate that the news is coming up at this point in time. But one thing I want to assure the electorate in the Anambra is that PDP is very focused, and PDP and this judgment, I believe that it will not alter the process or the primaries, because that's the fear of the electorate. Because NWC have the 99% powers to organize primary elections and the process. And on that note, I wish to align myself to the position of the party constitution and all that the primary election or the process that PDP has worked so hard to create a kind of cross bank for the people to believe that the party actually is going for this election united. And I want to see a situation whereby the party leadership will sit down and look at this judgment and put themselves together and still go for the election without the party or the candidate or having the burden of the judgment. What am I saying? One, because the concern of the public is the PDP going to still have their primary within the INEC timetable in line with this judgment? To me, I say my answer to that is yes. The party will summon this and go ahead and have a wonderful, a very constitutionally backed process.
Mazi Kechukwanya, let me ask you this question. Maybe I'm not sure you were here when Chief Ngozi Agodesi made that assertion. Let me also know. Let me know your opinion. He said that he quoted a section of the PDP constitution, in effect saying that the state chairman, the chairman of the state PDP Congress, has enormous powers with regards to conducting the state primary. He acknowledged that it is true that it is the NWC that organizes the election, but it is the state chairman of the party that will call the Congress or something like that. And therefore, that for the PDP to have successful primaries in Anambra State, they should first of all conduct the state party Congress to elect state party executive. What do you think with that? I don't know. Chief, I'm going to see if I'm wrong. Please correct me.
There's something you missed out. There's an impression we are creating here. I need to correct it. The judgment of the court does not in any way suggest that we have a vacuum in Anambra State. It doesn't say so.
There is an acting chairman, yes.
There's an acting chairman, so it doesn't say so. Unless you are talking about the personalities, individuals involved. There is no vacuum in Anambra State as we speak.
But who is the chairman now? What of the supposed chairman put queer warrant to stop execution? What will PDP do?
It's very simple. You just answer the question. If he says stay of execution, if he gets stay, what it means is that the status quo, which means that he will continue to act, there will be no vacuum. No court will give an order that there will be a vacuum in PDP in Anambra State. It's not possible. No court in Nigeria will give a judgment that there will be a vacuum in the leadership of PDP in Anambra State.
When everything is hung on in the court, will somebody parade himself as a chairman? Would there be chairman in Anambra?
If the court says you are the chairman, why won't you parade yourself as one?
Well, chef, nah, court say now you are chairman of Bonike, and I thank you put queer warrant to stop execution in law.
Who is going to grant you that? It's still the same court. If court grants you that, that means you will remain the chairman. There will be no vacuum. There will be no vacuum. You know, people who are playing up this are people who are not members of PDP. PDP is going to go for the primaries and their candidate will emerge. And by the grace of God, all the stakeholders will support the candidate and they will win the main election.
All right.
My point.
Let's hear from Mazi Okoye, who has been raising up his hand as well. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My question is quite simple one. I wanted to know, I know that Mr. Ohebu is quite an influential PDP member in Anambra State. And I know that there's quite other influential PDP people in the program today. What practical steps can they take? The people that we already know that is here, what practical steps can you take now to be able to see that your election is hard, the primaries are hard in June, as it was stated? What can you do? Is there anything you can do?
Okay, let's hear from please, if you don't mind. Let's hear from Chief Agodosi first, and then let's hear what he has to say. Yeah.
Well, my take was we should tell and sit down on a round and discuss these issues. We should get science. There's always room for, there is always room. The problem is known by all of us. And when we sit down, the truth can be resolved. That PDP will not. And there is, like I said before now, the state chief has a right and has a event the primaries, the Congress for the primaries. If he fails to do that, the only option the party will take is for the national to submit the name of anybody based on Supreme Court rulings, like Chief Ohebu have said. However, the most important thing is to win an election. There is no second position in this election. It's either you become first and be sworn in as governor, or you lose out. No second, no third position. So we need to just sit down and talk it over. I've advised in writing to the National Working Committee to call the stakeholders, the major stakeholders that Chief Ohebu mentioned their names, to a meeting and tell them, because listen, let me tell you my reservation. I'm afraid, leave the major stakeholders, leave Chief Chris out of it, leave Chief Linus out of it, leave Peter Obi out of it, leave Chief Olisamet out of it. I'm even afraid of some other people that do not want PDP to win an election. I can say it anywhere. There are other stakeholders that does not want PDP to win an election in Anambra State. I'm not saying it in fairness to Obuka, my very good friend. He has tried his best, but in trying his best, does he want PDP to win an election? Members of National Assembly, how many of them want PDP to win an election? Some of these aspirants that are contesting, how many of them are doing this in the interest of the party? Even Chief PDP to win an election.
So even Chief, we didn't get that.
Chief P2B doesn't want PDP to win an election.
Okay.
Because he has this problem. I had with him when Oseloka was running for election, and I asked him one simple question. We are in Africa as all these people are still your friends. You have discussion. If you know that with them, then we are PDP. Have them and Oseloka will win. Don't fear anybody. I said the truth the way it is, and that's why most of the major stakeholders doesn't like me. I tell them, it is we that are in the grassroots level that are suffering, and we must come out and say the truth. Today, Chief Linus Ukachukwu played a very major role in making Ndubisi Nwobu the state chairman of the party. Today, they are not in talking terms. How? Why should it be so? Ndubisi, you came through a court process. You woke up one morning and dismissed people that the court said that all of you are members of the state executive. You dismissed about 3 of them. Does he have such powers to do that? And you expect Chief Linus to go home and sleep? If you were him in his shoes, will you do that? He spent his money to make you chairman. You can, the people he put in the party, you remove them because they ask you a simple question. This is the fact. There was one stakeholders meeting they called. I remember Chief P2B saying that how much they gave to Chief Nwobu before a night before Chief Oseloka's election. And then the next day, PDP had 4 votes or 0 votes in his booth, pulling booths, state chairman of a party. How? How? We need to call a spade if you want to win an election. Members of the party are suffering. We have been out of government for a very long time. This is the only opportunity we have, and we should not play with it. Anyako rather than went to court was recognized, certificate of return issued to them as ward chairman and ward executives and local government executives. Somebody came on board and decided not to use them, and you expect them to keep quiet. If you were in their shoes, will you do that? I went to court challenging Nwobu's election. The National Legal Advisor was with me in court challenging the same election. And the court gave judgment, and we said, okay, let us respect the judgment. We went on appeal. We are still in appeal on that matter. And now this young man felt our rights has been tampered with. We must fight for our rights. And that's what we had today. That's what we had today. So, my brothers, the right thing should be let the National Working Committee call a meeting of Chief P2B, call a meeting of Chief Linus Ukachukwu, call a meeting of Chief Chris Oba, call a meeting of Chief Olisameto, and let them sit down and talk. Call a meeting of a representative of members of the House of Rep. Call a meeting of representative of a member from National State Assembly. Call a meeting of 1 or 2 other stakeholders, the senators that are there. We have 2 senators today. Otherwise, my brothers, if I'm part of the person that got this judgment today, you go and appeal. I go to Supreme Court. What happens? It's neither here nor there. It's 50-50 chances. If Supreme Court says something, will be like, what's the state that APC did not have a candidate for the election? It's a very big risk. It's a very big risk. We must tell ourselves the truth.
Now, Chief Agnes, let me ask you this question. There was a question asked by Sir Ikemi Bodike here, yes, which have not been answered, because Mazi Okoye asked a direct question. What can the PDP stalwarts do to resolve this problem. And then you said, let them just sit down together and talk. Now, Saikemi Godeka asked a previous question. How easy will it be for His Excellency Peter Obi and the Chief Priest Oba, for instance, to agree on a common position?
I can tell you for free of charge. Chief Peter Obi, if Chief Peter Obi wants to sit down with Chief Chris Oba and talk now, he will do it. Let's stop all this pretense. They are afraid at that level.
What are they afraid of?
Close friends, good friends at that level.
Oh, okay, okay.
They can talk. They can talk.
But then if politics is a game of interest, you and the Chief Ohebu and some other speakers have agreed that 4 major persons have to agree for Anambra to win this election. And that Chief Ohebu seems to imply that even if one person disagrees with the other 3, it will put a stone in the wheel of progress of PDP for choosing Anambra State. So how easy will it be? Back to what Saikemi Godeka asked, how easy will it be for these 4 stalwarts with all their own personal interests agree on a common position, seeing that the court has now issued a judgment which kind of put a spoke in the wheel of progress of PDP in the state?
Let me ask you a question. Let me cut in very quickly.
Right.
The word and local government recognized by the court today, are they from Kogi State? Are they not from Anambra State? Are they not members of PDP? They're members of PDP. They're from Anambra State. So they're free, they can work.
As a matter of, can I come in?
Okay, we can comment. Yes.
As a matter of fact, I was fully involved in the 2017 election, the primaries. The aspirants, all the aspirants supposedly saw the list of the delegates that voted on that day, on the eve of the election. Because of some logistic challenges, we couldn't paste the names until as from 8 p.m. on the eve of the election. But the aspirants were still in Oka. They mobilized, visited all the delegates, did what, in fact, as a matter of fact, they still made impact. With this, if you are going to go with this list that was confirmed today, all you need to do is to go to the court, get the CTC of the court, you can get verified, confirmed ESCOs. Because there you are sure that this is what you are getting from the court. So what I'm saying in effect is that it's not who is going to be, who is the chairman, who is not the chairman, will have little or no effect if the stakeholders agree to work together. Fortunately, none of the known major stakeholders is running for governorship. I have been privileged to have a personal interaction with at least 3 of them. As at the last time I spoke with them, they had no candidate in mind. That's just saying it could be this person, it could be that person. So I wouldn't say this is a go fight, because who understands some of the background politics better than I do, has said a lot about people who are being aggrieved and all that. And he mentioned how, and I must correct him, my brother is not Chief Linus Okachukwu, he's Evangelist Linus Okachukwu. He's an evangelist.
Yes. What about that?
So that's said, there is nothing that will stop the major stakeholders from meeting. I'll be surprised if they have not agreed to meet. These guys talk every day.
All right. So now from this court judgment,
if you visit if you visit A, you could be with him and B will call him on phone. As he's dropping, see, we call him on phone. They talk. The aspirants, okay, the aspirants met at Chief Elisabeth's house, 16 of them on Saturday. Are you now telling me because of this judgment, if any other person calls for a meeting that they will not attend? Was that meeting anchored by the party state ESCO? Was not. So what it means that if these stakeholders, and I realize that these stakeholders honestly want PDP to win that election. That's been the only thing. It's just the approach.
Okay.
They honestly, at least the three of them I've spoken with.
There's a question.
The question will be what will stop them from meeting.
There's a question asked on the chat room from Saikemi Bodike. We have always had PDP disagree into an election in the past elections. What has changed now?
The major thing that has changed now is one, the incumbent is not running for re-election. It's easier. Two, unless you have not followed what is happening in Apuga, there is a major crisis in Apuga. It has never been that bad. It would have been that bad when Peter was governor and he was, rounding up and all that. When they had that problem, because he said, okay, let me step down on this national chairman, run the show. But this time, even there is no national, it's obvious that the national chairman is not even in charge.
All right, let me ask this question. So today, even though we have not had the details of the judgment given today, but we knew what Barrister Sam Anyakora was asking the court for. And we all know that the court is not Father Christmas. The court can only give you what you ask for. They will not give you what they not ask for. So, Chief Ngozi Agorese, from what we know now, who will the PDP members in Anambra State be looking up to as the chairman of the state party executive?
Well, the chairman of the party as of today is Chief Umaba. Everybody should rally around him, and then we move the party forward. He's a kind-hearted person, and I know he has the capacity to do the need.
Now, another question I'll ask is, now supposing Ndubisi Nwobu, I wanted to speak with him this evening, but I wasn't opportune to. There were people with him. Suppose he disagrees with a position now that Umaba is not the legitimate state chairman, and went back to court and goes back to court to overturn today's decision. What do you think will likely happen? Or if, as the previous person, Tatango asked, if we got the court to stay execution of today's judgment, what will likely happen before the state PDP primaries this month?
Like Chief Ohebu have said, he's a lawyer, and we all know that. If he goes to court and gets stay of execution, then he remains the chairman. I'm sure he will go to court, and there is no two ways about it.
Okay. Before we end this meeting, let's get one fact clear. What exactly is the influence of the state party executive towards state governorship primaries? Because I thought you disagreed before, but let our listeners go home today with one point. How influential is the state party executive in PDP during state governorship primaries? Let's start with Mr. Hebu. Let's be clear now.
Okay, as I said earlier, with my own personal experience, having served as the secretary of a panel that conducted PDP gubernatorial primaries, practical experience. When I moved down to Owerri, the person I was interacting with as the head of the secretariat conducting the primaries was the state chairman and the state secretary. please, we need to meet the stakeholders. The people they invited for the meeting were the people we saw as the stakeholders. Because we came from, none of us, I think I was, okay, the chairman is from Southeast as well. But none of us was an Igbo man. So you, it's to a larger extent, depend on the ESCO for some logistics. They are the ones that will help you to settle down and help you to do your work. They're not doing your work for you. Even when they are calling the day, for instance, I have a list now, and I'm calling Daniel Elombah, and 2 people come out. And Daniel Elombah for Uruagu Ward 1. Definitely, I will look at the state because I'm not from Anambra, or I'm not from Imo. I'll look at the state history and say, please, what is going on? 2 people are, who is the chairman for that? Chairman has a role to assisting the people that will come. That does not mean that it cannot be done without. If the primaries, Professor Chuba's PDP candidate, about 2010, thereabout. They came to Abuja. The election couldn't hold in Abuja. They came to Abuja. Stakeholders meetings in international. And Soludo had a judge person explaining everybody from. This is the same court. And the national school went for a meeting and came out from the Wadata house and announced Soludo as the candidate. Of course, the next question was, what does getting that, what did it translate to?
Exactly, that is the problem. So you cannot.
So it's not about winning the primary. So that was why I said that 4 major stakeholders. I'm sure they are talking. In fact, I spoke with one of them this evening. Said he's going to call the person that they have spoken that they need to meet. I'm sure they will meet and get other stakeholders to meet, because we cannot afford to lose Anambra now, irrespective of whom the chairman is. My major concern is that somebody who will be accepted by all.
All right, let's
as a matter of fact, we are going to emerge now.
Okay, let's take a question from Anayomwesu, please. Let's, before we take the concluding comments from Chief Agudis, how do you respond to this submission from my brother Anayomwesu? Anayo, nice to hear from you, and then also use that to give us a summation of your views with regards to the topic we are discussing, which is tension in Anambra State PDP as the court sacks the Indivisible-led executive committee. Now, Chief Agudis, what do you make of what I have just said? And please use it to give us your concluding thoughts. Chief Ngozi Agudis, please.
Well, yeah. I said the truth.
I think there's a network problem.
They will, are you hear me?
It's not clear. We're not hearing you clearly.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, go ahead now.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Let's see.
So what I'm saying is that what Ivana have said is the truth. The truth. And I can assure him that PDP leaders in Anambra State will meet with the National Working Committee to resolve this matter. If there is also resolved. Another thing that the parents should also get themselves together and then plead with the leaders to do the needful. That's my submission.
All right, and what do you say is the needful? Let's be clear. Do the needful. What is the needful here, please?
the needful is for the aspirants to come together and call the leaders for a meeting. If I'm contesting from an aspirant now, I will demand for a meeting with the leaders, all of them together. Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, we're hearing you. Thank you very much. We heard you we heard you.
All right.
We thank you. So now, Chief Ohebu, what are your concluding thoughts on what happened today?
Very much for all the.
Okay, I will start by saying that Anayo is one man I feel very uncomfortable whenever he's giving me advice. That was an advice he gave me, personal advice he gave me in 2007. I didn't take it. In 2021, I'm going back to what he told me in 2006. So I'm usually very uncomfortable when people like Anayo, when they talk. And considering his position, he's a very big stakeholder in Anambra State, Ikenga is a Mewi. I know when he said we go and vote, Apuga, I was uncomfortable because I know Anayo may not be in Anambra State on that election day, but he could control hundreds of votes. And I'm sure people like him must have made this kind of comment to the leaders. It will force us to talk to our leaders, to sit down and talk. I told you one thing that has been the major source of joy for me. All the major stakeholders I've spoken with are looking forward to having a PDP governor. All of them. Have we confirmed that they want PDP is doing and all that? So if out of anger, you allow PDP to lose again, that is another 8 years. And I don't see any of them joining any other political party except PDP. So I'm sure they're going to work together, irrespective of whom the chairman is. As far as I'm concerned, the party is bigger than any individual as chairman. There was something Ngozi said concerning the relationship between the outside chairman and one of the major stakeholders. So you could see it could be an ego thing. It could be a fight against an individual, not against the party. Nobody wants the party to lose. From Samuel Anyakora, who incidentally was my classmate in the university, though, I'm sure none of them wants the party to lose. Even in Debisi Nwobu, he has put in a lot. Chukwudi Umaba, he has put in a lot. All of them want the party to win. So what I'm saying in effect is that I'm confident that in the coming days, irrespective of whom the chairman is, that the major stakeholders will come together and possibly issue a statement together showing the unity. I'm equally hopeful that in the coming days, all aspirants will come together and issue statements that are going to support PDP, whoever that wins the primaries. I'm sure it's just an ego thing. None of the major stakeholders is interested in becoming the governor personally. It's just for you to acknowledge that I'm a stakeholder, I'm involved, and I supported you to be the governor.
Thank you very much. Before we go, please let me quickly say that when we stop recording, we will have a brief 15 minutes discussion without recording, without streaming. For the benefit, the purpose of that meeting has always been to have perspective so that you help Elombah Television and Elombah News when they speak to Anambra on some of topical issues, they will have a perspective to give proper reportage. I hope Thank you very much, Chief Agodesingozi, for being here on a very short notice. Thank you, Chief Abuniko Ohebu, for also being here on a very short notice, despite all your engagements to be here.